All good. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
We are blessed to be stressed.
Yeah, I know, right? Did you get any good training in today, or was today an off day?
Not for me, but for work. Yeah, I had a lot of clients. But
Okay.
other than them, not
Okay.
not for myself. Off day for me.
Got it. Got it. So, I mean, well, first of all, I just want to, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So, like, how many clients did you have today?
I have about 50 a week
50 a week. Wow, that
in
many.
person.
Okay.
In 50 sessions. So I guess not 50 different clients, but I've
I got you.
50 in-person sessions typically a week right now.
And what does that consist of? Is this like mostly lifestyle clients? Is this competitors?
It's a really large mix. I
Mhm.
have a niche for moms because I'm specifically trained for pre-postnatal. So I do have a lot of moms, but I have everything from a former Chicago pro hockey player
Mhm.
to my 80-year-old clientele who are killing it. And I have all over the board.
So how did you get into just training and working out? Like, how did that become, something that's a passion in your life?
I was always in athletics, but not this style of athletics. I was coaching at the high schools for 5 years.
Okay.
When I found out I was expecting my first child, she was not planned. She beat birth control. We were not expecting her. she, she threw all of our lives for a loop.
That's
Um, and by that time, we had been dating for 6 years. So we were not surprised, but God planned it to happen a little earlier than expected.
hmm
So I had a lot of postpartum depression because of that. I was young. She was not planned. We weren't married yet, so there was a lot of postpartum depression that came with that. So when I finally got over, I don't know if I ever truly did get over that. It was more masked. But then when I found out I was expecting my second, I was very determined. I said I was not coming out of that one feeling the way that I felt with the first. So I actually registered to go back to school because I wanted to go back specifically for the personal training because I wanted to get my own figure back.
hmm
And I told myself I didn't want to feel the way that I felt after the mentally or physically after the first one. So after I was cleared with my second pregnancy at the 6 week mark, I officially went back into school and I completed 500 in-person hours in 6 months and had my diploma for the personal training in 6 months.
hmm
And then really never looked back from there. And it grew. I started just loving what I was doing to myself, found a love and a passion for helping other people. And
Right.
then it slowly grew in the last 2 years into the competitive world. But that was something I always said I wasn't going to do. I said, you'll never see me on stage. I'm never going to get on stage. Sure enough, I ended up on
Yeah,
stage.
it's funny because a lot of people say that. Like they'll get into working out and they'll say, "Oh, well, I'm just gonna do this and I'm not gonna, go further. Like I'm not gonna step on stage." And then eventually it's like one thing leads to another, and then
Yes.
they end up competing. So I've seen so many people do that. What made you decide to now, get on stage, even though you personally, earlier didn't want to do it?
Oh, don't mind my phone just deciding to die. It's
It's
fine. We're okay.
It's all right.
I'm
It's
like,
probably like stacked on a bunch of like books and stuff like
actually, I
that.
have actually no, I have a tripod, but
Okay.
it's on a magnetic stand and it's powered. So if the power like somehow disconnects or turns off, it
Uh-huh.
just drops.
Oh,
So,
nice. Nice. Yeah, no, there's so
ig-
many like unique ways to like set up cameras now. Yeah.
like ignore that. Other than my technical malfunctions. Um, it's funny. I actually started because I got super competitive with a couple of people that were in and around me in the gym, other trainers, um, who were competing at the time. And my coach I just trained with for fun, but he is an NPC judge. He trains a lot of competitors, and he always kept telling me, "You'd be really good at it. You'd be really good at it. You'd be." And then
Mhm.
um, someone that had won, he goes, "You would have beat her." I was like, "You think?"
Yeah.
So
That's how
then
he hooked you into it. Yeah.
then I got hooked. It was my internal competitiveness came out, and ended up having a lot of fun. So for now, we're riding that wave.
Yeah. Where did you compete?
The first time I ever competed, which was 2 years ago, I competed in Florida.
Okay.
I competed in Florida.
Is it
And
under
then,
NPC? Was it
so
under?
actually, no, he's an NPC coach, but I don't compete NPC. Love NPC. I've got so much respect for it, but I'm a professional fitness model, and I fell in love with this particular federation because I was able to model with a lot of high-end photographers along with
Mhm.
it. So I made a lot of really cool connections, and I've been able to do some really cool work on the outside. So I fell in love with FMG, and I had been competing with them, and they're really big in Australia. So hopefully I can get over there and compete against the Aussies one day because they're usually my heavy ringers. Um, they're quite incredible over there. So hopefully one day
Yeah.
I can go do one over there too.
Yeah.
But I fell in love with that.
I've had a couple of girls compete with that organization. They mentioned that I'm not as familiar with other organizations, but there are a few that kind of um like WBFF that kind of more look at not just the muscularity, but also just the, I guess you could say maybe the femininity and the pageantry of the competitors as far as the female divisions are concerned. So a lot of
Yeah.
people love it. I mean, a lot of people compete there, so they love it a lot, and so it makes, there's got to be something that hooks them into it like that. But for you, obviously, it was
Yeah.
also a little bit of a business decision too. Sounds like.
It definitely was. But
Yeah,
I found my perfect realm because I am really competitive, and I for sure wanted to be up against some awesome figures. And I don't want to just, win against anybody. I want to win against someone that
sure.
looks incredible. And I found a home at FMG because
Mhm.
they were that happy medium for me. They had a little bit of the glitz and glam that, I got when I originally tried WBFF,
Mhm.
but I wanted something that also leaned a little more into the bodybuilding world that
I
was a
see.
teeny bit closer to
Hmm.
NPC, but I still had the feminine, a little more femininity with my posing.
Sure.
And then I found them and fell in love with the whole process ever since.
Just rode that wave, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just I did have one question just to fall back on your postpartum issues. So with your postpartum issues that you had, did you feel that, well, first of all, before I go into the question that I really want to ask, I was going to preface it. How did you feel the first time? What was it that you felt where you were like, "Oh, I'm in postpartum depression"? Was there something specific? Is there a way that you can describe it?
It's a good question. And postpartum depression is different for everybody. There's some people that completely shut down. There's some people that throw themselves into something else and put on a smile and mask it. There's some people that really can't function. I've had clients on kind of every end of the spectrum. And for myself, it it really started one because I was so young. I wasn't expecting her. I mean, all my friends were still kind of out at the bars. We just graduated college.
Mhm.
They're finding where they belong in life. And there's a lot of people I didn't even tell when I left school that I found out I was pregnant. And, they'd reach out seeing how I was doing, and I just wouldn't respond because part of me was embarrassed. A part of me was not really sure what I was doing.
Sure.
So I really shut down. I cut out a lot of old friends. Um, and then the mom guilt on top of it makes it 10 times worse. And then you get more depressed and more shut down because you start to feel guilty. Like, why do I feel this way? And then you
Hmm.
feel like a bad mom because you should be focusing on your child. You should be happy. And of course, you're also battling exhaustion. I was waking up, multiple times a night to feed her, and I'm sitting in there crying my eyes out. My husband can sleep through freaking everything. Nothing.
Yeah.
He can't help feed her. So I'm like, well, shit, okay. So I'm sitting in there. I'm bawling my
Hmm.
eyes out. I'm feeding her. I'm feeling like a bad mom. my milk was going away because I was so stressed. And then that
Mm.
made me feel more like a bad mom because I couldn't feed my child. And
Yeah.
it's just all these little things start to pile and pile and pile and pile. And then you don't want to talk to anyone about it. You don't want to tell anyone about it because you feel ashamed or
Mm.
guilty. So I really didn't reach out for help at all. It was just, I have always been just a put your head down, keep working, push through kind of person. So it wasn't that I wanted to physically harm myself or physically harm my child, but
Yeah.
it was really mentally lost. Like I felt unfeminine. I didn't like what I saw in the mirror. I felt very ugly. I mean, my hair started falling out. I joke right now that she took all my hair and all my melanin. I'd never been whiter in my life than after I gave birth to her. And she came out this gorgeous Mexican little princess. And I'm like, oh, well, that sucks. You just took all my color and my hair. So just from physical to
Hmm.
emotional, just everything, you felt very
Hmm.
crappy about yourself. And the mom guilt on top of it, it just
Yeah.
completely shut down, put on a front face, and eventually really was able to get over the hump of it. But I don't want to say I ever truly found happiness in myself again
Hmm.
until I started working out. When I found the gym, I found peace, both mentally and physically. And I will say it changed my personality altogether. I'm still an introvert, but I was far more of an introvert prior to that. Learn to make friends, learn to communicate more, get more comfortable with the uncomfortable situations. And it's a learning curve for everyone. Everyone takes it very differently, but for me, I found the mental and the physical side both from the gym.
Yeah. Does it's interesting because a lot of people think of postpartum depression as like only going as far as to harming yourself or your child, but there's, before things get to that point, there's a lot of suffering that happens, and not everyone obviously gets to that point, but so it's just it seems like it was a lot of dominoes, like a domino effect
It
where one
is. It's
one will
a
knock
very
over the
large.
yeah, another one and another one and another one, and it just starts compounding on top of each other until you kind of just exist. You don't really
Yeah,
live, you know. Yeah.
absolutely. And I've had a lot of clients who have gone through it as well. One of my clients, she described it as just completely shutting down. Like they couldn't get her to leave the house. She didn't want to take care of her child. She did, but she didn't want to. She just
Mhm.
wanted her husband to take over. She said she felt like all emotion had just been ripped out of her, just like it was just almost walking ghosts. Like you're just going through the day without really
Right.
feeling anything. And um, sometimes it really doesn't go as far as self harm, but it affects every relationship around you, not just your relationship, but everyone else. I know my husband's and my relationship at the time was really, really crappy
Mhm.
because of the way I was feeling, but also he was going through his own stuff,
Mhm.
new dad, we're both
Sure.
experiencing new things. But it helped me having a really supportive family, but a
Sure.
lot of people don't have that either. And
Right.
it's different for everybody.
Right, right. I mean, excuse me, I can't imagine going through that without having nobody to depend on. I mean,
Uh,
even with
Agreed.
someone, it's difficult, but without anybody, I mean, it's just such a difficult existence. I was gonna ask you, so with regard to postpartum depression, a lot of people say, well, it's because of your hormones. And, with you just finding the gym and being able to work through it using, athletics, using the gym, using training, what do you think? Do you think that that's something that needs to be addressed with like a medical professional, or is it possible to get out of this situation like you did, like just training and going to the gym, or is there maybe like a combination of both that needs to be there?
I definitely think it's a combination of both. I think that One, it's not as spoken about. And I do think that a lot of women are almost too ashamed to say that they're suffering. And especially if they don't have a partner or if they don't have family that's as supportive, I know it's different for everybody, just like a normal depression would, not postpartum. But I think there's really both ends of the story. For example, when I was, in the hospital, they hand you this sheet after you give birth, and it's these questions basically asking, "Are you happy?"
Hmm.
And there's just this whole list, and you have to answer these questions. And I looked at my husband, I said, I can't answer these.
Hmm.
I passed him the sheet. I was like, I know I'm supposed to answer them, but I was like, I need I need you to answer them because a part of me was nervous. I'm like, will they not let me out of the hospital? Will they not let me go home? Will they take my baby away? Like you don't know if there's going to be repercussions for you saying that you don't feel right, which I knew I wasn't going to harm my baby, but and I know they have to ask those questions, but it almost makes you nervous. So you don't
Hmm.
really want to answer them honestly, especially when you feel that way and you feel guilty and you're in this facility and you're nervous they might not let you go home.
Right. Right.
So there's that end of it and the fear aspect. And then there's the side of when you do get home, if you start feeling those symptoms, people, one, not knowing where to go for help. Two, financially, is there resources that you can go to that don't cost an arm and a leg? Because, therapy can get really expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, there's time, there's money, there's support. Like, is your family going to be supportive of you saying that there's a problem, or are they going to judge you if there's a problem? And there, 'cause some family members and friends will be that way too, which makes you not want to say it
Yeah.
either. So I think there's so many components that go into women potentially not wanting to admit that there's a problem, or just not noticing there is a problem. Because at the time, I think if someone would have asked me if I was clinically depressed, I would have at first I've been in denial, not really
Hmm.
wanted to admit that that was depression because I've never felt that way
Hmm.
in my life before. And I don't want to say I didn't feel like I didn't have something to live for because I did, but it's an
Hmm.
interesting feeling because
Yeah.
you feel almost ghost like. It's
Yeah.
just there's something missing and it's hard to explain.
Right. It's hard to describe. Yeah. And so I work, your point about the questions, I work in the medical field and sometimes you do have to ask people questions, even if they're not like mothers. I mean, there's just things some poignant questions that are uncomfortable that we ask patients. And I totally see your point and I see that in the patients as well as it's difficult to answer them without thinking of what's going to happen if you're being honest, and
Yeah.
so it comes down to that. And it's as much as we like to tell people like that's not the reason that we're asking him and all this stuff, it's like people can't help it. But I can only imagine when it comes to your children because you know it, I'm sure a thought comes across your mind that will you be able to keep your child if you start saying how you truly feel, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that's also a scary situation. So, yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from there. Um, with regard to like the training aspect of it, what helped you move along? Was it the fact that your body was changing and you were seeing yourself, you were liking what you were seeing in the mirror, or was it just the act of working out was benefiting you? I don't know if that's a question that you can answer, but I was
No,
just
definitely. I-
curious.
There's there were definitely multiple levels to that. I would say the first thing that started to help is the fact that I felt like I had a purpose again.
Hmm.
Like I was striving for something for me. Like I wasn't doing yes, I know that in the end I was also doing it for my family because I was starting a new business, but it started, that was a me goal. That was something I wanted to accomplish, I wanted to achieve. And the fact that I put myself out there to strive to do something new, and that gave me a sense of pride. I will say that was the first thing that helped.
Mhm.
And then getting my body to move. Just the physically getting up, making myself leave that door, out of the house. I was away from the family, had a little bit of me time, and
Mm.
then moving, blood circulation, starting to actually think about, food and overall health. That all definitely contributed to genuinely feeling better. But then it's strived more and more into, like the runner's high. I started loving what I was seeing, and I'm also very internally competitive with myself, and I would say healthily competitive to those around me. Like if someone's lifting 5 pounds more next to me in the gym, then I'm a little upset, and I'll
All
go
right.
and I'll go try to get the five
You're
pounds more.
you're not gonna run over there and like shove them down or anything like
Yeah,
that.
no,
Not
but
that
like I
competitive.
want to, I no, maybe not that competitive, but like I want to do 5 pounds more.
Right,
So
right.
there was something that I was missing too from being a former athlete back in high school and
Hmm.
college. And I missed that. I didn't know how much I missed that. But when I started having that ambition again with myself, and then both physically and mentally, just seeing my progress, I felt more confident. I looked better for sure.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden it became both a physical improvement as well as it was just the competitive side, wanting to lift a little stronger. I felt proud, confident, strong. I never felt a power like that before. Bodybuilding truly gave me a mental strength that I didn't know I needed.
Yeah, I see that a lot with former athletes. So like a lot of people that I talk to were former athletes. You have some that they started off with bodybuilding. That's the only thing they've done, and they've done that all the way through their lives. But in most cases, people have been athletes and they either aged out where they just haven't, no longer compete or whatever the case may be, or they might have got injured or something like that. And so they kind of lack that competition in their lives. So when bodybuilding comes along, it gives them that thing that they're missing, that vacancy that fills that void. And I think, we often don't hear in the society of bodybuilding being, so powerful for people for good. Often bodybuilding is kind of put down. It's a very
Yeah,
niche thing. But I feel like in a lot of cases it brings people up, mentally,
definitely.
emotionally, and it's obviously it's person specific, but still, I think for a lot of people, it gives them something to do, something to focus on, and honestly, something beneficial for them. Why not be, healthy and strong, and there's way worse habits out there that you could get
Yes.
into. So,
Yes. And I mean, generally speaking, not just bodybuilding, but strength training in general for any age, any client, it it truly is the fountain of youth. Like it,
yeah,
when done properly, I can create a better quality of life
sure,
at any age, whether it be mobility, strength, balance. I make sure that you don't fall down stairs as you get to be 80 years old,
right.
or you can still lift your grandchild or play with them on the floor. Like those are things I work with my
Hmm.
clients. One of my favorite goals that my at the time she was 75, and when she came in, I asked her what her main goal was. She wanted to lift her 35-pound bag of kitty litter into her car by herself. I was like, we can do that. That's a good goal. Like,
Yeah,
we can do that. So I love the application
yeah,
in the functional training it creates throughout life that most people don't realize.
yeah.
And one of my professors in school said something that stuck with me for a really long time. And I created, or it gave me a new appreciation for personal trainers, because we do tend to get put down more and uh, than someone like a physical therapist, for
Hmm.
example. But a lot of my classes were taught by physical therapists, and one of my classes, the she was a personal trainer now, but she was still technically a registered physical therapist. And one
Hmm.
of our classmates asked her, why did you switch from physical therapy? You went through all that school to
Hmm.
personal training. And although she was still a registered physical therapist, she didn't practice. She only did personal training. And her response was, I decided I would much rather teach people how to prevent the injury than rehab it.
It's a good
And
answer.
I had a newfound appreciation for what we can do for people. And I don't think everybody always realizes that. And I don't have people that always come to me because they have a weight loss goal. They
Hmm.
might have an eating disorder and they might need to put on some body weight just for from general health. Maybe they lost their period because of how bad it got. And
Right.
I do have a few of those. And I have 80-year-olds that wanted to lift their 70 or their 35-pound bag of kitty litter to their car. Those are good goals. Those are
Yeah.
goals that I can help create a better quality of life. And I love that
Right.
about our field.
I love specific goals. When people come to me, the first thing I ask them obviously is what's your goal? And I love when people give me specific goals as
Yes,
opposed to just very like general and broad ones because specific goals I can actually create a plan for. General goals, if they're stuck on not giving me anything specific, it's more like I'll give you a base and then we'll see what happens. But I rather not do it that way. I rather like have an exact goal that we're working towards so it's measurable, you know? And
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So so with you, getting into competing, what level, and you have to excuse my ignorance,
You're fine.
since I'm more of an NPC person, what level would you consider your division being in? Like, in NPC they have like figure and
Yeah.
bikini. Like what would you be in?
So my category in FMG is considered bikini athletic, which is comparison to the traditional, not the new category they added, but the traditional NPC bikini.
Got it. Got it.
That that's the comparable look that we're going for.
Sure. And as I'm looking like through your pictures, you've got like, a good solid build with a good quality muscle, especially the ones on the stage that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Have you, um, are you planning to stay with that level of muscularity? Are you wanting to add, like, do you have goals of what you want to do?
With my critiques as well as my coach and what I want, we love the level of conditioning that I brought.
Hmm.
I, along with a lot of people that were there, one of the judges even gave me the critiques that I was the best conditioned on stage by
Hmm.
far.
Yeah.
But there were certain areas that I could have afforded a little bit more fullness in.
Hmm.
So next round, we're going to try to keep a little bit more of that fullness in my lower body, but come in with the same conditioning level that I did and see if we can kind of create the best of both worlds.
So is that going to come from, and I might be asking this too early, but is that going to come from just putting more muscle in your lower half, or is
That's
this
what
like
we're starting with. I
okay,
have a tendency, this sounds funny because a lot of people that don't know the bodybuilding world, they always give me crap for this, but I say that the cutting phase, realistically, now having gone through both,
hmm,
is easier for me, both mentally and physically. One, your results are almost immediate. Like you
right?
get immediate gratification from it. Whereas when you're bulking, you have to get comfortable with watching yourself get fat. You're
Yeah.
like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, this is awful. Like, you're seeing your cellulite come back. You're watching, like, my butt dimple comes back. I'm like, everything I don't want. I'm like, you work so hard to get rid of it. You have to watch it all grow again. So the bulking phase for me is hard emotionally, physically, and I have trouble getting as much food in as I need.
Hmm.
So I have an appreciation now that I didn't in the beginning for the cutting phase. I used to think that that was the hard one. I was like, no, it is not. So we really took a break during season A. This time around, I'll compete in season B at
Hmm.
the end of this year because we wanted to spend a really good amount of time trying to put a decent amount of weight back on
Hmm.
before I cut because I tend to cut very quickly, very fast. but with that, I have a hard time keeping the size on. So
Sure.
we're going to try to cut slowly. We're going to try to keep on the size and come in with the same level of conditioning. And then hopefully I have the package that we need.
It's interesting that you said that like people aren't in the bodybuilding world don't understand that because there's times in the past I'm not trying to grow anymore now. I'm just trying to more refine. But there was a time where I was wanting to grow a lot more. And when I would tell people, I was like, oh, I gotta eat again. I'm like eating so much. They're looking at me like with this face,
Yes.
like what like come on, man. Like really
Like you're so
eating?
lucky you can eat
Yeah.
that.
I was like, you don't understand. It's when you're eating for that kind of purpose and you eating more than what you really want to, it's just as
It's
difficult.
miserable.
Yeah.
It's just as difficult.
Yeah, it's just as difficult for somebody who has a hard time cutting. Like it's the
Yes.
same exact thing. It's just hard to imagine that, but it's very true. And you're right.
Yes.
You're right. You're doing all this work, but you don't see the defined lines, the clean muscle bellies. Like
Yeah.
you're seeing yourself is just get bigger, and
Bigger.
yeah, and you're hoping that when you're done and you start cutting that you're
Yes. You
retaining
can
all of that. Yeah,
show it off. Exactly.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
It's hard. And then for me, I'm also a professional model, so
Sure.
it gets a little more emotional, especially when I start the bulking phase because
Mhm.
there are jobs that I might not get and that come
Yeah,
up because I don't have the physique that I need in that moment, or
right.
I'm blatantly just too big. And that gets that gets hard because sometimes I wish I could go for those jobs and I can't. But
Mhm.
it's this, like you said, there's just the happy medium.
Yeah.
You're just looking long term, looking down the tunnel,
And
trying to see the final picture.
I didn't think about that. That is something that you brought up that I have never really thought of. And it's so obvious, but never thought about the fact that if part of your business is modeling, during a bulk or an off season, that becomes very problematic. Yeah, I
Yes.
did not even cross my mind, but it's so like true.
Yep.
Um, yeah, interesting.
Like I
Very
would have
interesting.
loved to do Miami Swim Week this year,
Hmm.
and I have quite a few friends that are doing Miami Swim Week, but
Hmm.
right now I'm not the figure they're looking for.
Yeah,
I'm too broad right now. Which is funny because realistically, I am not a large
no,
girl. Like
yeah,
I'm still relatively tiny, but when compared to the models that they're looking for, I'm not the physique right now.
yeah.
So it gets a little hard sometimes doing the bodybuilding as well as the modeling on the other side of it.
Are you, does it give you an opportunity for a different kind of modeling? Like,
Oh,
because
it definitely
Mhm.
does. And don't get me wrong, there's, all ends of the scale for modeling. We don't always
Sure.
need the our twig side of it,
Right,
but
right.
it for me it's hard because I'm definitely a perfectionist.
Mhm.
And although as many people have told me that I look better now, but like my coach, there's so many, especially men, that have said like, no, we prefer the way you look now. And I'm
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
I get that. I hear that. I don't agree with you, but I hear
Right,
that.
right.
But I'm a perfectionist and I am primarily a fitness model. So there's that side of me that wants to look like I'm in peak 24/7 when it's just
Hmm.
not possible. You
Sure.
just can't do that. But you're looking back at your old photos and you're like, oh, I used to look so good. I'm like, I used to
Yeah.
look like that.
Yeah. That's
So,
funny. There's not to get too depressing here, but there's been people, and if you keep up with like bodybuilding and fitness, there's people that have passed away and
oh, yes.
they contribute that to staying in really, among other things, but really lean condition all year long and
Yeah.
not, and so
And
it
it's
might
not
not,
healthy.
yeah, it might not even be healthy really, so
It's not.
yeah,
It's not.
yeah.
That's just the perfectionism in me
Hmm.
and wanting to be for me, I say perfect, but my
Yeah,
version of my
sure,
perfect, not
sure.
for anyone else, but myself. And I am extremely competitive with myself. So I'm always wanting to one up myself.
Like do better.
But
Yeah, yeah.
there's it, I would say the only mental hard part for it is when I do get those opportunities for those modeling gigs, and I'm not at the physique that I need to be in order to get that particular role. Not that
Mhm.
there aren't other roles that I could go for, because there
Sure.
definitely are.
Right.
But um, sometimes I wish I could do certain ones that I'm just not prepared for.
Yeah. No, I understand. Makes sense. What do you think about the state of fitness um, in its entirety? I know that's kind of like a very broad question. Is there something that you wish that like you could change? Is there, do you like the direction that everything is kind of going
With myself
with the fitness industry
or the fitness
as a whole?
industry.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's certain things we'll never be able to get rid of. And there's always going to be a new fad diet or a new
Hmm.
fad exercise program or a drug,
Hmm.
cough, cough. But there's
There's a lot of that. Yeah, for sure.
a lot of that. And, I've always been a very hardworking individual. I will say that, my dad in my wedding speech said I tend to get my head ahead of my skis. If I have an idea, I just go for it. And usually that gets me into some trouble. But I've always had that personality. If I have something I want,
Hmm.
I go for it. I don't see obstacles as obstacles. I see them as hurdles. I just have to hurdle it. I just have
Hmm.
to get over it. But I can see it at the end, and I'll go for it. I will say my personality in that aspect has made things easier, but not everybody has that personality. And I understand that, but there's certain, roadblocks or certain issues that some people can't look past. And that's usually when they put up the front and they go for the drug or the fad diet or something because it seems like a simpler solution. And for some people, it works, and that's great. But I think that sometimes it gets a little too crazed, especially, with social media these days, that one particular type of diet or one particular type of drug is just the easiest answer for everybody. When, in reality, all of it is unhealthy for you. Too
Hmm.
much of anything is unhealthy for you, whether it be the side effects from the drug. And some of them are popping up now. More people are learning that there are some pretty severe negative side effects to the current
Hmm.
one that people are using.
Hmm.
But I think if people, or more people, I should say, looked at things not so obstacle-ish, but more, this is just a hurdle I have to get around, I can
Hmm.
do it, it would be easier for us as a community to have that 80-20 in life where we can work hard, we can still have fun, we can be healthy, we can still have a treat. I don't think that enough of society has that moderation down. And I think
Yeah.
that that will always be a problem. There's always an easier solution, a faster solution, simpler solution, or people that we look up to that influence us to try something else. It's just not something we're ever going to be able to get rid of. However, I think that sometimes we don't see as many people willing to put in the hard work.
Hmm. I think you're right about all that because it's interesting. Most like we'll just put it out on the table. I mean, fitness as in bodybuilding is not always drug free. Let me put it that way. So,
No.
if anybody knows anything about that, then you know. If you don't know, then you can figure it out. But it's not always drug free. And so, I think what's happening nowadays, with your point about social media, is people are jumping to performance enhancing drugs, whatever they may be, whether it's weight loss, whether it's anabolics, to so early. I mean,
Hmm.
I've seen like young kids within 16 or 17 years old, maybe even a little bit younger, jumping on performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
They haven't even begun to scratch the surface of their natural abilities, and they're already on
Yes.
those supplements and those drugs. So it's not that I'm recommending anybody be on them, but for sure, it's I mean, literally on the earth only 14, 15, 16 years, and they're already going, into those realms, let me put it that way. And so it's just, I think social media it plays a huge factor in that. I'm
It
not,
does.
I'm not against social media. I think it benefits a lot of people, but I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it's,
It is. It no,
you
it
know,
definitely is. There's pros and cons. There could be a huge supportive community. And we talk about this all the time that the anabolic steroids, for example, or even
mhm,
Ozempic or any of those,
right.
you can't just take it. Like it still requires hard work. Like
Hmm.
you can't sit on the couch and eat chips all day long and
Right.
pop yourself with Anavar and all of a sudden have a bunch of muscles.
Right. Right.
It doesn't work
Exactly.
that way.
Exactly.
So you still have to have a bunch of hard work. So I
Yeah.
never discredit anybody that is on any of that. However, I do, yes, to your point, think that the side effects, the negativity, that just to the young community,
Right.
it isn't brought to their attention until basically it's too late. And like
Right.
Ozempic, there's so many health concerns that people are learning now
Hmm.
from people being on it just too long. I've got one client that got off of it, and she still to this day cannot get her stomach right. No
Mm.
GI can figure it out. It is just it renders her immobile for days when it hits, and it's sad because
Yeah.
I can't do anything to help her with that. And
Right.
the GI, like every doctor just dumbfounded. No one can figure it out. But or the bone density issue with it, and
Hmm.
people are starting to get osteopenia or
Hmm.
osteoporosis, and there's so many negative side effects. And not that it can't help certain people, because it definitely can, but I
Yeah.
do think that sometimes, as a general whole, we're just a community that's a little bit too quick to jump to medications to help us
For
versus
for sure.
the
Yeah,
other route.
we're very frivolous in that. We're just kind of just take it. Just take it.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
just take it. It's like no regard for consequences, no regard for, learning about it. A lot of times people just take things because they hear about it. So
yeah,
you've done
yes,
no research, but you heard about it. Well, this person took it and it helped them. Maybe it did, but don't you want to know a little bit about what
yeah.
you're going to put in your body, And so yeah, I completely agree with you, but yeah, I think it's going to come down to personal accountability. Unfortunately,
Oh, for sure, for sure.
there's not going to be a mass change anytime soon. It's just going to be personal accountability.
Definitely. And you're going to have two ends of the extreme. You've got the people
Mhm.
that spend every waking moment in the gym working on themselves,
Yeah,
yet they're technically unhealthy. And then you have the
right,
other side, the people that just don't get off the couch and they're technically unhealthy.
right.
There's just that that moderation line that I think not enough people meet in the middle. That you can
Yeah,
have both, you can be healthy, everything within moderation is okay. But
absolutely.
both ends, from food to workout to everything, just
Right. Anytime you start going to extremes, it's detrimental. And I mean, I always give the example of and I'm not obviously like extreme, like sports on high level are extreme by nature. But for example, yeah, you go jogging a little bit here and there regularly, and that's beneficial for you. But when you're at a high level runner all your life, that's going to wear down your knees. That's going to have other issues. So
yeah.
it's like human beings on an extreme level. And again, I'm not saying don't become a runner if that's your aspiration. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I'm saying is anything extreme is gonna take its cost. It just is.
Definitely.
It's just part of life. So so you really want to count that cost before you start making those kind of decisions.
Definitely.
So for sure. Well, Sam, I really appreciate you coming on. I know you're very busy, but I enjoyed our chat.
No, I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And what would be the best way for someone to reach out to you if they wanted to reach out for coaching or for like maybe another podcast or something like that?
The best way to contact me would be through my Instagram page. That's my number one platform.
Okay.
I'm really good with checking my messages on there, and my email is also on there too, so you can email me as well.
Okay. And guys, I'm going to link everything at the bottom of this video to make it easier for you to contact Sam. Well, thank you so much again, and you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Have a
All right.
wonderful night.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.